What's up, guys? This is Commander Rhino back from Scarif Elite, bringing another unboxing video of Ahsoka Tano, a really special one here lately, because I just finished the Clone Wars series for the first time. I know I'm pretty late to that. Our Hot Toys unboxing number is MMS021. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this packaging. We're going to go ahead and get her all open and take a look at the figure. And I wanted to go ahead and bring out why, and really talk about in this video, why I decided to make this purchase. I was originally not going to get this figure, but finishing the 7th season of the Clone Wars, it was a big must-have once I finished it. Here we got a little bit of the unboxing work. And she just looks really cool. Really articulated with the elbows being hit in the joints. I really like how you can move the eyeball function around. It really looks like she has her own personality going on. She's really poseable and pretty colorful, and I think her as a character was pretty colorful. I think what made Ahsoka, or me, fall in love with this character a lot was her personality reflected what the Jedi used to be. No matter what it is, despite even what the Council would suggest, or lead her and Anakin and Obi-Wan, despite what they thought, Ahsoka always went with what was right. And here's a look at all the accessories that comes with Ahsoka. We'll go ahead and talk about these for just a minute. We won't spend a lot of time. This device is the peg that you use to be able to adjust her eye movement around. It's pretty handy. I'm going to go ahead and show you how that works. We just hold it and pop the head off. And it's a really tight fit anyway, which is nice, but it's also got a magnet in there which holds it together, which is pretty cool. And then the eyeball functions in there. We'll just use that hinge in there if we want to adjust it. But I really like the way that works. At first, it can be a little tricky, but I think I've slowly started to get the hang of it. But let me try to get her in a good pose, and hopefully she can still see after we're done. Here's her hand accessories, and again we get more holograms, and she can have master, or her master, talking to her, Anakin. I think that's really cool the way they make these look. This Attack of the Clones outfit on. I don't really remember when Ahsoka used a grenade. I'm sure she did at one point, but you guys can tell me in the comments when and if I missed that. And she has 2 swooshing blades. And anyways, back to the figure itself. We're just going to go in and keep the posing going. And I just wanted to talk about, again, why I decided to get this character. This last season especially, for those of you who haven't watched it, I strongly suggest check it out. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's worth it, especially if you really like the prequels. I think it adds a lot more depth to the story and really the tragedy that is Anakin Skywalker. And you find out that this character really had a deep relationship with Anakin and Obi-Wan as well. It was almost kind of like that was her brother figure, and Obi-Wan was kind of the uncle that kind of watched over them both. But I think it's interesting how important Ahsoka is to Anakin and really just her arc going forward in her life, because Anakin and Ahsoka together, that was kind of like the balanced seesaw. They kind of fed off one another. Their personalities are very alike, but they tend to do, I guess you'd say, the right things when they were together, which made a perfect balance for them both. And when they weren't together, I would say that's when Anakin maybe takes some of the risk and choices that he normally wouldn't make when Ahsoka's around. And I think that has to come with some of the responsibility he felt looking to her as a, little sister that he never had, So he felt like there was a responsibility to make sure, I have to think about her. She's my Padawan. I have to take care of her. And when Ahsoka's not there, that's when Anakin decides to maybe stretch things out a little bit more than he usually would. And that's the sad thing about it, because we ultimately know how it ends. When Ahsoka's not there, we know what happens to Anakin. And I'd like to know that in the end of this. If y'all would, leave me comments. I'd really like to know your opinion on this. What do you think would have happened? What could have been if Ahsoka had maybe not left and did the battle on Mandalore with Bo-Katan? Does Anakin still make these choices that defines his life for the remainder of the saga? Is there any kind of sense of hope that you think that, if Ahsoka would have been there for him, Anakin doesn't make those decisions that change his life forever and the galaxy? I also personally think that if Ahsoka had been there, I think she could have maybe saved him. There's something there and a lot of things that he was willing to talk to her about that he normally wouldn't talk to Obi-Wan about. That in itself is a little sad, but Ahsoka did help fill that void. Ahsoka fed off of him, like the same way she fed off him. I personally think if things would have worked out, I kind of for some reason see Ahsoka maybe being the master that trains Luke one day, maybe Leia, and maybe for recreation for Padme and Anakin, maybe she's the one that babysits. Just a thought. But we all know that that's not what happens. And it really, finishing that season really showed the depth of this character. And I'm really excited what they do with her in the live action series. It's really built this character up for me in the last few months that I'm like, wow, Ahsoka to me now is like maybe a top 5 favorite character. She's up there. She has a really neat arc. She is the combination of what the Jedi should be. She's the one that kind of, tried to remind Anakin and Obi-Wan that, the Jedi are getting lost in this Clone Wars. They're playing the politic game, whereas the Jedi were selfish and only cared about others. Their job should have been to take care of those that weren't able to take care of themselves. And the Jedi have kind of lost their way in that, getting bogged down into a war that they don't really even ask themselves, why are we in this war? And Ahsoka was important to try to understand that. And I think a lot of the Jedi thought that by the time they did, it was too late. And we get the little tragedy scene that we know what all happens is when Ahsoka abandons the Order. The lightsabers are a reflection of Anakin's downfall as well. His OCD feeling of a dramatic expression in his life that he feels the need to try to make peace with controlling the ones he loves and cares about around him. When Ahsoka retrieves her lightsabers back from him, Anakin has adjusted the kyber crystals to blue because that's how he feels like he should see Ahsoka. And that's interesting because that shows Anakin becomes what he becomes because of that willingness to try to have some sort of urgent control over those he cares about. That's his way of feeling protective of them. I thought that was a really interesting thought. But anyways, guys, that was my thoughts on this. That's why I bought this figure. I love this figure, and I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I'm just going to let the rest of this roll, and I'm going to get her posed up in the collection room, and this is how we're going to leave her. Like, comment, subscribe.